This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics Daily. I'm your host, Roby Brock. Today, we will extend a preview of what to expect this week at the Arkansas State Capitol. Of course, there will be curveballs beyond what we know is on some of the committee agendas and set to come. I'll also be joined by John Brummett, columnist with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, for our first of the week deep dive into state and national politics. Stay tuned.
Talk Business and Politics Daily is sponsored in part by Impact Management Group and
Power. It's right there, waiting, ready to go when you are. Connect this, click that, unconnect and go every day. Delivered by your electric cooperative. Each unique, always united, and completely local. Born from a mission to provide dependable, sustainable, and affordable power to every corner of Arkansas. And delivering on that promise for a brighter Arkansas every day. It's the local hometown cooperative way. Better connected. Together. The Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas.
Well, there's a lot on the agendas for the Arkansas State Legislature this week. Let's run through a few highlights that we know will happen. Expect to see action on the big power bill that advanced through the Senate committee last week. In the House, we'll see votes on a bill to use nitrogen gas for state executions, another measure to pull AETN under the purview of the state education department, and possibly the first hearing for the governor's higher education plan called the Access Act. Speaking of the governor, she'll call a big press conference on Tuesday morning to lay out her plans for, well, we don't know exactly what just yet, but we'll find out. Also lining up activity on budget bills. Today was the filing deadline for appropriations bills, and the first hearing for proposed constitutional amendments could happen in the House State Agencies Committee later this week. Of course, Tuesday night is Hoops for Kids' Sake. Find your way out to Central High School's gymnasium at 6 p.m. to support a good cause and to get a good kick from out-of-shape legislators and Capitol staffers running up and down the basketball court. And of course, you can keep up with our coverage of those stories at talkbusiness.net. Certainly, there will be some other things that will come up that we don't see coming just yet. When we come back from this break, John Brummett, columnist with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Stay with us.
Talk Business and Politics Daily is sponsored in part by Capital Advisors Group and
in the Navy, I train recruits. At Walmart, I recruit veterans. So many veterans have built their careers here.
Served in the Army for 11 years. I was promoted 4 times. Been with Walmart 9 years. I've been promoted 5 times.
I started as an hourly associate, and now I run the store.
430,000 veterans hired in the last decade. That's more than serving in the U.S. Navy today. There's no better place for veterans to work.
Connection. It's the heart of what we do. It's why we work to better the communities where we live and work. It's why we're expanding to get people connected and create digital equity programs that support affordable internet and digital literacy. We're leaders for positive change. From the way we empower our people, clients, and communities to the way we care for our planet. We live our values every day. We're Cox Communications, and we're pleased to connect with you.
Joining me now, John Brummett, columnist with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Good to be with you, John.
Happy Monday morning to you.
Yes, let's begin with, let's start with national news this week. Let's go to the late end of the week press conference, or I guess press gaggle in the Oval Office of the White House between President Trump, President Zelensky of Ukraine, Vice President J.D. Vance, the shrinking Secretary of State Marco Rubio. It lent itself to an opening sketch in Saturday Night Live that didn't need a whole lot of rewrite. What was your take on what you watched and how you've seen reaction to that press conference?
I think that if we are going to have to negotiate with a brutal dictator, a terrorist, and then try to force feed what he says to his innocent victims in Ukraine, then we at least could do it privately, leader to leader, rather than in a TV spectacle. But as Trump said, this was good television. And as we know, that's a big deal to him. I even think that it probably was a semi-planned ambush. It depended on whether they got the right questions and how Zelensky handled it. But I think the idea was to get him to appear hostile or disrespectful to the United States after all the country, not Trump, but all the country has done for him. So I thought it was tactical. And it's a lament. I'm not necessarily averse to pursuing peace any way you can and having Trump work with Putin. Let's see what they come up with. The big question then becomes, what if it's bad? What if Zelensky doesn't go along? What if Europe doesn't go along? And then we have to make harder decisions. But this approach, this bullying approach, this trying to bait him. And Lindsey Graham said he told Zelensky before he went to the White House, don't let them bait you. So I think Lindsey, essentially as an Trump insider, may be confirming that it was sort of an intended tactical thing. It was an unpleasant moment for the country and for the world. It's not the temperament, it's not the behavior we need. Even, and I say that even as one who's given into practicality, and if you want to talk to Trump, Putin, talk to him and tell us what he's got, and let's just move along. But this was, just to shout at the guy, you don't have any cards, and you're going to start World War III. I wanted Zelensky to say at that point, if we get to World War III, which side are you going to be on? I thought that would have been, but that might have been even expedited the hostilities. It was a sad moment. It was not fun to watch. And I don't know what any of this means. I never know what anything means with Trump. Are we giving over? Are we siding with Putin? Are we now not an ally of our historic European allies? How much are we willing to force or try to force Ukraine to take? And I don't think the Congress is with Trump on this. I'm not maybe surprised at what the Republicans will get into. But I'm never against talking. So if they're talking, but I am against, some things, as a newsman, I'm different from some. Some things need to be in private. High-level, hostile, candid discussions about world crises. They could have had a private Oval Office confab. They could have shouted, and then they could have issued sanitized statements, and not subjected us to that kind of behavior. That's my take on it.
But that does not kind of go into the Trump playbook there, as you've kind of alluded to. This was, if you look at some of the reaction from Trump supporters and from right-wing media, right, was cheered. This was the way we should have been handling Zelensky and Ukraine the whole time. So I've actually seen some opinion from some folks that have gone through great strides to justify that this was the way this should have been handled the whole time, even though it is completely different from anything we've really ever seen before. I think there are brilliant analyses of how brilliant Trump is by setting this up. And then there are analyses that talk about how Zelensky's a bad person and Putin is not so bad. And that's an element of the MAGA takeover. And we just have to see whether with Trump, he gave it away at the end. It's pretty good television, and it's not right. It's not the proper way to go. It's not the image for a world leader to engage in. But yeah, he's a lot of times he's playing to that important base, which used to be called kook and wildly extreme, but it's now part of it. It's now an element of the base of the American president as we face this very delicate, untenable situation. Last thing I'll say on this, and I think this has been lost. It's been pointed out a few places, but it hasn't been the dominant theme here, is You recall that Trump wanted dirt on Joe Biden from Zelensky. He didn't get it, and it led to an impeachment. I sense in all of this a big motive of revenge from Trump. I'm going to embarrass this for embarrassing me, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's grievance politics, and I'm glad you mentioned that because that hadn't been mentioned enough. I mean, Trump got impeached over something that he said to Zelensky, and then there was mention, I think, there on the couch, maybe by Vance, maybe by Trump, that Zelensky made an appearance with some Democrat during the campaign in Pennsylvania. It wasn't specifically an endorsement, but there was something. Do you remember that? There was something in Pennsylvania that where Zelensky made an appearance. I want to say with Waltz or somebody. I could be wrong. I don't know. And that was mentioned. So yeah, all of this is classic Trump. Good TV, show off, say wild things, and try to get back at, not get even with, but get ahead of somebody that you think is just a little too full of himself. These are two guys who know TV, you know, Zelensky and Trump.
All right, let's turn our attention to state politics. We've got a lot kind of coming up this week and next week. First of all, there will probably be a hearing this week on whether or not to move AETN under the guise of the Department of Education. It has moved through the Senate already, so it's down in the House with some debate on this. You've also got the higher education bill that Governor Sanders is pushing will probably get its first hearing sometime later this week. And we will probably see a resurgence of a vote that happened late on Thursday over prison funding. The governor lost by one vote, I think, the ability to get $330 million out of a budget committee hearing. It seems like that's something they'll find a way to bring up again and try to push through. There's a lot happening at the state capitol 6 weeks into the legislative session. I'll give you a chance to chime in on any of those potential topics.
Higher education. We've been arguing. We've been moving in this state and much of the nation for years away from a classic liberal arts respect in our public policy to a more productivity-based model and contributing to the economy and job opportunity, and also requiring some sort of different measure of what we expect from public colleges. You know, your alma mater, Hendrix, is private. It can teach all the liberal arts it wants, but we need to do something more practical with our public dollars. And I think we've been moving that way, and that's probably going to pass it. But an element of this higher education thing is the indoctrination. You can fire a tenured professor for saying something that I think the right wing disagrees with. Then there's also no more excused absences for student protest. It has this element of, and some things we're going to get amended out. I haven't been kept up on that. But it's all a sort of a conservative disapproval of thought, political thought and political practice on our campuses that they disagree with. I think that's an element of what's going on. But the world is in such peril, and politics is in so much turmoil that we're almost numbed to something on the state level like that. It's been happening for years. I think this bill is going to pass and do all of what the governor wants, or this package. And so, I don't know, higher education is being redirected to some degree, with, I think, voter and legislative concurrence.
All right. Well, we'll have plenty to keep our eyes on. Another thing I didn't throw out there, but another thing just for people watching this to keep an eye on, the state execution by nitrogen gas bill also got out of a committee late last week. It'll get debated on the floor of the House, I believe, this week. So we'll
4 states. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, feel free. Go ahead.
4 states, Alabama, Oklahoma, and a couple others, have authorized the use of this smothering, asphyxiation by nitrogen gas method of execution because they have trouble with the lethal injection, with the drugs, with finding the vein, and they're doing this. They did it they carried out one in Alabama, and people who witnessed it have been horrified at what happened. So what they saw and what this process entails, that it's cruel and cringing. But we're going to add our name to the list, I think, because we're part of those. We're one of those kinds of states: Alabama, Oklahoma, Arkansas. I've called Arkansas Oklahoma. It's very similar to those two, and it's just any way we can find to make sure we can, when the time is right, when we can get these people executed, is the motto. But people ought to read up, do a Google on that Alabama experience. It was it did not go ideally. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, I will be curious to see too, since we've had trouble getting the drugs that are a part of the cocktail for lethal injection. I'm wondering if nitrogen gas will be in short supply once this becomes a little bit more widespread. We'll see if that happens as well. So
it is not widespread yet. It is limited both in practice and in authorization to the right-wing, largely southern states. But that doesn't mean it's not going to grow.
All
okay.
Right.
All right, buddy.
John Brummett, he's a columnist with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. We appreciate you.
And I appreciate you. Thanks. Bye.
That's all for this edition of Talk Business and Politics Daily. I'm Roby Brock. Thanks for tuning in.